Hey there everyone, welcome back to another Game Vault video. As always, I'm Captain Beefy with the Game Vault, and we're going to talk about Ubisoft today. It's 2025, and this could very well be the year that buries this once great developer. So let's cue up the music, and we'll get right to it. All right, from that Park Place, Ubisoft value tanks. The market cap dropped 85% from 2021 to 2025. That's 4 years. Once a titan in the gaming industry, Ubisoft has experienced a dramatic and concerning decline in value over the past 4 years. From a market capitalization of $12.17 billion in January 2021, the company's value plummeted to a mere $1.78 billion by January 2025. This represents an alarming loss of approximately 85% of its market value, underscoring severe financial turmoil and strategic missteps that have left the Assassin's Creed developer struggling to maintain its foothold in a highly competitive industry. 2024 was not a good year for Ubisoft. They started it off with the release of Skull and Bones, the long-awaited pirate game that was not well received. It spent about 8 years in development. It was partially funded by the Singapore government, and the price tag on that, if memory serves, was somewhere in the $400 million range. Maybe it was more. I don't remember. These numbers get thrown around so much that it's always hard to remember, but it was in the hundreds of millions of dollars, and the game just did not do that well. Ubisoft also saw another Prince of Persia game launched last year, and that underperformed. Star Wars Outlaws underperformed, and they released a new live service game called X Defiant, which is being shut down this year. Assassin's Creed Shadows, the latest in the long-running Assassin's Creed series, and which I would call that their flagship IP, was due to come out in November. It had been receiving tons and tons of backlash ever since the initial trailer was released, due to the fact, mainly because the main character in a story set in feudal Japan about a samurai, instead of being a Japanese samurai, was a black man. It was utterly ridiculous. So, the usual accusations of it being a DEI hire and so forth and so on were slung around, and the addition of hip-hop music to the fight scenes, it was an utter dumpster fire. So they ended up delaying the game till February of 2025. Valentine's Day, I believe, is when it's supposed to come out, on the 14th. I would not be shocked if this game is delayed even further. Who knows? We'll have to see what happens, but I expect when it comes out, it's going to severely underperform. But anyway, in January 2021, Ubisoft stood strong with a market cap of $12.17 billion. This reflected its status as a powerhouse in the gaming world. However, by January 2024, the company's value had been cut by over 74%, dropping to $3.14 billion. The downward trajectory continued unabated into 2025, where the market cap further decreased by nearly 43% from the previous year, settling at $1.78 billion. This total reduction of $10.39 billion over 4 years highlights deep-rooted issues within the company's operations and strategy. Now, I know there was talk of Tencent maybe, buying the majority of this and rescuing Ubisoft, the company going private possibly. The Guillemot family wants to maintain control of the creative process here, but I think they're the problem. I think Yves Guillemot is the problem behind Ubisoft, and if he is in charge, that company is never going to improve. It's going to stay where it is, or it's going to continue to falter. Ubisoft, unfortunately, may need to start selling off IPs, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, I think they're going to need to start selling off some of these IPs to make some capital. They're going to need to lay off, and they're probably going to have to lay off tons and tons of people. And considering the fact that they use DEI-based hiring practices, and when I say that, I mean they're hiring women, and they're prioritizing the color, the sex, and the sexuality of potential hires over their merit, right? So instead of hiring the best person for the job, they're hiring you because you are something other than a white male, right? For instance, they're prioritizing other people over those demographics. So, if that's costing you, if that's making your games worse, then shame on you. But I've got no mercy for you, man. If your company's going down because of that, well, you reap what you sow. Anyway, when we factor in their most recent reported loans for March 2024 totaling $2.71 billion, likely higher now due to updated rates and additional borrowing not yet reflected in the valuation, Ubisoft's financial position seems to have worsened compared to 2024. The company's inability to sustain liquidity sufficient to cover its mounting debt is exacerbated by the impending release of Assassin's Creed Shadows in February, a game that has already garnered significant negative reception. If Shadows flops, it could cripple Ubisoft's ability to secure further loans to sustain operations through 2025. With its current valuation to debt ratio, no bank would be likely to extend additional credit without a solid assurance of repayment. Unless a miracle occurs, Shadows could deepen Ubisoft's financial woes and potentially push the company toward bankruptcy. Industry expert Joost van Drunen, founder of Superdata, has voiced a grim prognosis for Ubisoft, suggesting that the company is on the verge of privatization and dismantling in 2025. He points out that Ubisoft's share price has nosedived, making it an attractive target for takeover. Maybe we can get, Elon Musk to buy it. That would be kind of funny, wouldn't it? Anyway, its valuable assets, particularly Rainbow Six Siege and the Assassin's Creed franchise, could be worth more separately than together, he said. The upcoming Assassin's Creed Shadows faces stiff competition from PlayStation's Ghosts of Yotai, which is another disappointing game, but that's a story for another day. And recent failures suggest deeper organizational issues beyond individual game performance. Ubisoft's strategic missteps have significantly contributed to its financial decline. Recent game releases such as Star Wars Outlaws have fallen short of market expectations, with pre-orders reportedly abysmal and sales figures remaining undisclosed, a red flag for financial instability. Yeah, usually people are proud to tout how many copies they've sold of a game. Hey, we sold 10 million copies of this. We sold 25 million copies of that. If they're not selling it, if they're not telling you, they're not doing good. It's not a great thing. One thing that I will give Ubisoft a little credit here. Remember, you used to have to buy through Ubisoft for the PC and all that. They are allowing games to be bought through Steam now. They just recently allowed Star Wars Outlaws to be bought through there. I looked at the Steam DB on it. It was abysmal and all that, but I honestly can't use that as a real metric because it had already been released on PC through the Ubisoft store and all that. So that's not an honest look at its performance. I'm sure it, had it been released there in the first place, then we would have a more accurate representation of the player base and all that. But being that it was out for months and months and months ahead of time before it was released on Steam, it's not even worth looking at. That's like corrupted data, basically. Anyway, the decision to release Outlaws on Steam shortly after launch, deviating from the exclusive Ubisoft Connect platform strategy used for successful titles like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, suggests a desperate attempt to salvage sales and improve liquidity. This move indicates the company lacks confidence in its own distribution channels, along with an inability to maintain strategic consistency. Financially, Ubisoft is grappling with mounting debt and declining revenue. As of its latest financial report, Ubisoft's non-IFRS net debt stands at $1.1 billion, and its IFRS net debt has risen to $1.4 billion, up sharply from $880.8 million the previous year. With cash reserves dwindling to $932 million, the company is struggling to generate sufficient revenue to offset borrowing costs. Now, additionally, the estimated annual cost of $746.6 million for maintaining an 18,666 strong workforce is unsustainable given the declining revenues and increasing debt burden. We're going to see a lot of heads roll there. And honestly, Yves Guillemot, his head should be on the chopping block at this point. He is the author of their failure, without a doubt. There's a saying, shit rolls downhill, but they should lop the head off of this snake, and it might have a chance. But anyway, management and organizational issues further exacerbate Ubisoft's predicament. Van Drunen criticizes Ubisoft's outdated development approach, which fails to engage players and build a strong community. That's a necessity in the modern gaming landscape. The shutdown of XDefiant is not merely a failed launch, but a symptom of a broader problem: Ubisoft's inability to adapt its distribution and development strategies to contemporary brands. Now we look at the key art for XDefiant here. And I've talked about this in other videos, how, and in the comment section of videos too, that we've had some discussions, how the prominent color here is purple. And we've seen so much of this. We've seen it in Dragon Age Veilguard. We've seen it in other games like we call Fortnite and stuff like that. And a lot of people have pointed out that this seems to be the color of either feminism or the trans movement or whatever, something heavily tied in with one or both of those movements and all that. And it just seems to be a red flag. Anytime I see this color associated with the game, it's an immediate red flag for me, and it looks woke, for want of a better word. I'm going to use that word. I know it pisses a lot of people off, and they're like, you're just another one of those guys. But honestly, this does not look appealing for a shooter game. This looks like a bunch of gay LARPers. You know what I mean? That's what it looks like to me here. Anyway, moreover, the costly development of Skull and Bones, which has reportedly consumed between $650 and $850 million over a decade, highlights inefficiencies in resource allocation and project management. This project, alongside the cancellation of multiplayer games like XDefiant, has drained financial reserves without delivering expected returns. Cultural and ideological overreach has also played a role in Ubisoft's downfall. The company's intense focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives has alienated a portion of its core fan base. Overindulgence in DEI without balancing other strategic priorities has led to disenchantment among loyal customers and investors, contributing to the erosion of Ubisoft's market confidence. Workforce challenges further complicate Ubisoft's financial struggles. The company has been forced to hire external contractors due to an overstaffed and inexperienced internal workforce. That's terrible. We've had some strikes going on, which was bad. And Ubisoft's they're terrible in a lot of ways. If you look at games, a lot of games they do, even like recent Assassin's Creed games. Let's jump and look at like Origins, which by the way just got a patch, I guess, that broke the game. Odyssey and Valhalla, single player games, right? That you buy stuff for. You buy weapons and armor and stuff for with physical money. I mean, that's why, right? Why? There's so many weapon sets, or so many, armor sets in those games and weapons and all that. Why are you selling more? These guys, and I think this is part of the problem with Ubisoft, is they're spending so much time, resources, and talent on just trying to make that extra buck and bleed every dollar out of their player base, that they're not developing good games. They're just trying to drag and suck every dollar out of your wallet that they can. And it's getting to be pretty gross, You combine that with the fact that Yves Guillemot says, you just got to get comfortable with the fact that you don't own your games. They've been shutting down older games and you can't even access the single player portion of them. I mean, that's ridiculous, man. That's absolutely ridiculous, But, that's a discussion for another day. Anyway, this reliance on external talent not only inflates production costs, but also leads to inefficiencies, as many of these contractors lack the necessary experience to contribute effectively to game development. This imbalance has resulted in poorly executed gameplay and increasing production costs, further straining Ubisoft's already precarious financial situation. Adding to these multifaceted challenges is the looming threat of bankruptcy. Yeah, I think a lot of problems too is when you hire these outside firms and you outsource all this stuff and you bring in consultancy firms and all that, they're not there for the long haul. They're like a mercenary. They're hired there to do this little portion of a job, and then they're gone. They're not there to see the end result. They're not there to celebrate the win, so to speak, if it wins, and they're not there to mourn the loss if the game is a failure, so to speak. So, they're just there to get paid, do their thing, and move on. I'm not a big fan of using outside sources unless you absolutely have to. According to a recent exclusive story by That Park Place, Francesco Solback, Ubisoft's financial woes are so severe that bankruptcy in 2025 appears imminent if drastic changes are not implemented. The company's escalating debt, declining cash reserves, and poor stock performance have significantly weakened its financial standing. Analysts estimate Ubisoft's credit rating has plummeted to CCC, a level that indicates imminent bankruptcy unless immediate and positive changes occur. The potential privatization and dismantling of Ubisoft have attracted interest from major players like Tencent. However, a Tencent buyout may not be the lifeline Ubisoft desperately needs. Instead of acquiring Ubisoft's corporate structure, Tencent might find more value in purchasing its intellectual properties through a bankruptcy auction, leaving Ubisoft to declare bankruptcy without a sustainable path forward. This scenario would mark a tragic end for a company that once stood at the pinnacle of the gaming industry, now reduced to battling insurmountable financial and organizational challenges. What do you guys think, man? Do you think they're going to go bankrupt this year? It's a distinct possibility. Part of me says, you know what, you guys deserve it. And I wouldn't shed a tear, I'll be honest, if it happened. At this point, Ubisoft has been so dirty with the way they've treated gamers, you and I, the things they've said, the things they've done, the way they do business overall, it's abhorrent. So, if they go out of business, they go out of business. If they have to go bankrupt, they go bankrupt. If they have to sell off their IPs to the highest bidder, that might be a good thing for gaming overall, as maybe some other companies will be able to swoop in and pick up some of these IPs and breathe new life into them. Imagine somebody picking up the Assassin's Creed IP. That would be insanely good. They could go back, they could, breathe new life into that franchise, maybe remaster or redo, the Enzo trilogy from the beginning and, and just start over and, do some great stuff. I know right now, at this time, Ubisoft said they've got, 10 Assassin's Creed games planned for the next 5 years or something like that. That's insane. And I think that's one of their main problems is they're going for quantity over quality, and they're just pumping out trash left and right, and they're expecting us to gobble it up. There was a time when we could trust Ubisoft to put out good games, but that time is long since past. And we're learning, man. We don't pre-order anymore. You can't pre-order, and studios don't make games. Developers do. So you can't trust these studios just because they used to be good. BioWare's proven that. Ubisoft proves it. They all prove it time and time again. So we're going to see what happens. Please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about all this. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ring that bell for notifications. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, peace.